about prayer today, and I might be talking about prayer a couple more weeks on this too. Just been thinking a lot about prayer and the mystery around prayer. Such an everyday thing, and yet there's still a lot of mystery around prayer, a lot of confusion about prayer, what it is and how best to practice it. So I thought of this old joke about three preachers, ministers. They were standing out in their neighborhood on the corner talking about the best positions for prayer. And there was like a repair person, a repair guy up on one of those utility poles, working right near them there. It was a Spectrum. That's the ones on our street. It was a Spectrum guy. He was up on a utility pole there. And they're having this conversation about prayer. And one minister insists, well, kneeling is the way to pray. Kneeling is really the only right, proper position for prayer. And the other minister said, oh no, I always get the best results standing with my hands outstretched to heaven. And the third minister said, oh no, you're both wrong. The only way to pray properly, the effective prayer position is lying prostrate, face down on the floor. Well, the repairman couldn't contain himself anymore. He was up on the pole and he says, guys, you've got it all wrong. The best praying I ever did was hanging upside down on a utility pole. It's good. You'll really pray in a situation like that. Reimagining prayer, that's what I kind of took as my title. And just thinking about different approaches to prayer and thinking about doing some exploring about this very basic activity we all do everywhere. People everywhere pray. Different positions, different manners of doing it. But it's really such a basic thing. And so the first approach I wanted to take to it was just to think about prayer as asking. Prayer as asking. Jesus taught that very strongly, to pray in that manner. Prayer as asking. From Matthew 7 we see, ask and it will be given you. Search and you will find, knock and the door will be opened for you. And here's the promise. For everyone who asks receives, and everyone who searches finds, and for everyone who knocks, the door will be opened. That's a powerful teaching. Powerful teaching. There's a promise in there that the universe is responsive to, as God will respond to our questions, our needs, our desires. We need to just feel them. We need to ask. We need to be there and commune with God in that way, and then God responds. God answers our needs. He obviously wasn't talking about asking for things. Elsewhere in Jesus' teachings, he says, don't worry about what you'll wear, what you'll eat. Don't worry about your shelter. Seek first the kingdom, your relationship with God, and all the rest will be added. So he wasn't talking about asking for stuff, like a Mercedes-Benz. 60s people remember that reference. Not asking for cars or houses or more money or stuff. He's asking about something deeper than that. This is a deeper kind of asking we're talking about. I think there's a lot of mystery, a lot of power in that teaching, and some really useful exploring to do about what does it mean to ask in prayer, and what kind of asking is powerful, is most effective. Jesus taught about asking as prayer, and he demonstrated it all the time. As he was going around doing his teaching, healing ministry, he would ask people all the time, what do you want me to do for you? What do you want me to do for you? Who do you say that I am? Do you want to be made well? He was asking people all the time, almost like he was urging them to get clearer on what they really wanted, what the deep desires of their hearts were. I was interested to learn in some reading recently that the word prayer comes from a French word, prier, which means to ask. To ask. That's a much broader understanding of prayer. In many ways, that's one I think we can work with better. Prayer as asking. Because if we understand prayer as a very limited thing, in the context of religious devotion or practice or a litany of words of some kind, that's pretty limited. But when we think of prayer as asking, as getting clear on our deepest desires and needs and questions, desperate questions we desperately want answered for ourselves, for our loved ones, for our world. When we start thinking about that, we're all praying. We all ask. We all have deep desires inside. And that in itself is an experience of prayer. when we hone in on that. And especially when we remember that promise from spiritual teachings, when we hone in on that deep desire, it's known to God already and being responded to. Search and you'll find, ask, you'll receive answers, knock, the door will be opened. So what is this asking? What's involved in this kind of asking? This is more than a request for something. Because I think we understand that the things we think we need are really more symbols of a deeper experience of life we want in some way. If it's a car, we think we really need a new car. Maybe it's just we need a greater sense of freedom, Maybe it's that, something deeper. It's always deeper than the things. Things are more like symbols of representing a deeper desire in us. And maybe that's where we need to get at, closer to that when we're thinking about asking. So I'm thinking about, to me, 3 kind of basic characteristics of asking as prayer. First one is awareness. Awareness of our deepest desires, really trying to get down to that deep need in the heart. What is it? What is it for you right now? What is that deep desire in your heart? So often we don't even have an awareness of it. We have a restless energy and a desire for certain things that we think might bring us that experience or answer that deep need, but we're not really clear on what that deep need is. And when we truly get to a sense of awareness of that, there's power in that. There's a wonderful quote from Emily Cady in Lessons in Truth. She says, desire is the thing itself in incipiency. It's a word you don't hear every day. Would you like to say that with me? Incipiency. It means in beginning form, in the very beginning form. Desire is the thing itself in incipiency. So whatever we deeply desire, it's already rooted there. The seed is already there. It's already underway. So having an awareness, that's the first one. Second one is being receptive. Being receptive as you ask, as you focus in on that deep desire. Being kind of receptive that you're going to receive something now that you've become aware of that. You don't even ask anything if you're not expecting to receive something. You're putting it in there, out there into the universe. There's a possibility of it. You're open and you're ready for the universe to respond to that deep need of your heart. You may not know how. You may not have any details, any ideas about how this might be answered, but you're open. You're ready to receive. And the third one is a sense of expectancy. You are expectant. I think that's one we have to work on a little bit. But it's real powerful when we are in a state of expectancy. Too often, I think, and I've been guilty of it myself, we don't expect much of God. It's like a kind of an ineffectual grandfather in our lives. Nice, but not somebody we really are counting on every day. I really think is that powerful. And that's something we can work on. We can build a greater sense of expectancy. Because that's a powerful thing, to really be expectant of something to happen. It makes things happen. It's powerful. It has a drawing energy about it, a law of attraction about it. The more expectant we can be, and it's something we can build. My earliest minister in life was E.V. Ingraham in a Unity Church in Cincinnati, and he said, we must go into prayer taking a bucket. Taking a bucket. It's one of my, it sticks in my mind for all times. It means you're expecting, you're ready to receive, you've got your bucket, you are there. Not empty, like not expecting much. All we can do now is pray. You ever heard that word? Yeah. They used to say that a lot in movies. It's like they've done everything else that was effective, and now we're done with that. That's a kind of impoverished expectation of prayer. It's like, no, we need to go in with full expectation. This is a powerful activity we're engaged in. It makes things happen. It gets the channels open. It gets things flowing. We have an expectancy. And we can build that. We can build a greater sense of expectancy. Every time we get some kind of an answer to prayer, any kind at all, a lightening of mood, an idea that comes to us, an offer of support from the universe in some way, we can recognize it. My prayers are being answered. Answers to my prayer are coming every day. And as we tune our minds to that more and more, we'll find we're developing this sense of expectancy and alertness more and more, and answers are coming to us more readily. Go into prayer taking a bucket. In truth, the more open we are, the more clear we are, aware of our deep desires, the more receptive, open, the more expectant we are, the more our prayers are answered, the more things respond to us to answer the deep needs of our hearts. So I want to share some stories related to that. There's so many of them. I've been reading some information about Father Boyle, the wonderful man, Greg Boyle, Father Greg Boyle. They just call him Father G in East LA, where his parish is. It's like the most gang-infested area in the country. Have many of you read about Greg Boyle's work? It's just amazing the work he's done out there. It's the largest kind of gang member rehab, re-education, re-entry into society program in the country. It's more than 7,000 young men and women have come through his programs out there. He calls it Homeboy Industries and Homegirl, and they put them to make jobs for them. There's a bakery, there's a tortilla business, there's a recycling of electronics business, there's all this stuff they do, and they remove thousands of tattoos. That's one of the big things they do. Lots of tattoo removal, and they supply a lot of counseling as well, because most of these kids came from homes where their early attachments were really dysfunctional and broken things, and it's just amazing the work they've been doing out there. So that was his first ministry as a Jesuit priest, and he was just thrown right into deep needs in this community, deep needs and deep desires, and a lot of faith and a lot of innocence and a lot of openness, because I think these young men know they're being given an opportunity through this wonderful ministry of Father G. So Father Boyle, there's a lot of things on YouTube if you ever want to hear him speak, and he's got books out. He told a story in one of his presentations about one of his gang members, Mario, and he was talking about how the blessings in his work are so mutual. He's inspired every day by the gang members he's working with, and he shared a story about he was walking in the neighborhoods, and he was by this kind of crummy project building where some of his parishioners live, and this gang member Mario was sitting out on the stoop, who had been in, and he knew Mario, who was in the program a little bit out there, and he says, "Hey Mario, how you doing?" and sits down next to him on the steps there, and Mario says, "Father G, it's really amazing you kind of came by right now, because I was just thinking to myself, I was just praying, God, if you're as powerful as you're supposed to be, show me a sign." And then you came along. That's kind of amazing. And Father G said, this is amazing to me. This inspires me. That's the answer to prayer. In the day-to-day, it happens all the time, and maybe especially if we're wide open that way, ready to receive. It's another spiritual teacher I've been reading a lot of lately. His name is Padre Tom. He's from Ireland. He's the director of a Peace and Reconciliation Center in Northern Ireland called Corrymeela, and it's been very involved in solving the troubles in Ireland, reconciliation between Protestant and Catholic, and building bridges of communication and peace in the country. And he tells a story about earlier in his life when he was sort of unclear about what he was doing and unhappy and frustrated and kind of in a desperate place. And he was praying, he was a Catholic, he was praying in the church one day. He said he had a desperate desire for something, goodness, happiness, peace. I can relate to that. I think we've all been in that kind of place, desperate for something, some kind of peace, some kind of happiness, not sure what it is. And he said then a question kind of came up in his mind, real clear and very blunt. What do you actually want? He said it was so blunt and so clear, he was shocked by its clarity. I was shocked by its clarity. This was a question that came to him, and it wasn't really an answer to prayer. It was a goad. It was an urging to reflect more deeply on what do you want. This wasn't something that was going to be answered with just more religious devotions. This was a call for truthfulness. This was a call for reflection. This was an answer to prayer. He said he took that question with him. He left the church at that point and took the question with him, and is still working with that answer. That answer is still coming to him. That's an answer to prayer too sometimes. Some guidance that comes, a suggestion, an idea. This is something I need to look at. This is something I need to reflect on. That's guidance too. That's guidance too. That's an answer to prayer. Prayers of asking receptivity. It calls for a kind of inner receptivity that we can practice as well, and we can get better and better at. We can build our inner receptivity. I thought I'd share a little story as one of my little answer to prayer stories. It's about inner receptivity. I think we need to pay very close attention, especially if we're aware of a deep desire in our hearts or a deep question or concern. Pay real close attention to our intuitions and to our dreams, the way guidance can come to us. Dreams have always been a big one for me, as they are for a lot of people, but other people, sometimes for some people, guidance comes in other ways. Like that phrase that popped up in Padre Gautama's head. Sometimes people get ideas as they're journaling, or might be some other ways. But dreams are a good one for me, and this was a story about a lost cat. I lost a cat one day, an accident outside, let him out healthy and well to run around the neighborhood, and there was some kind of an accident or injury, and I searched and searched, and found him a couple of hours later, deceased behind a house in the neighborhood. Did not know what had happened, and it was too late to do anything about it. And I adored my cat, Wally. He was kind of an orange, swirly color, butterscotch kind of colored cat. So I was distressed. I was very distressed for a day or two. Missed him for a long time after that, but very, very distressed for a day or two until I had this dream. And I had this dream that I was wandering around this, it looked like a medical building of some kind. There were hallways. I was on a lower level of it, down basement. People in white coats wandering around, and I was looking for the cat. I was looking for Wally. And I'd go up to people, and I went up to some woman in a white coat, and I said, where's Wally? Where's my cat? Where is he? And she looked unconcerned. She said, well, at the moment, he's in the Apadome. That was a new word for me. Is that a new word for you? Yes. And I get new words sometimes in dreams. I'm a very verbal person, as you can probably know. And I looked that word up when I woke up, of course. And God is clever. God has ways of reaching us that resonate with us and our particular bent. And I have a verbal bent. So I looked that up. Apo is a prefix that appears on a number of words. It means kind of attached to or just off something. And dome has quite a lot of meanings. It has a kind of a round, like a ceiling shape, but it also has a meaning of house of God. So Wally was just off the house of God. Just off the house of God. I woke from that dream immediately, before I looked up the words in the dictionary, with a greater sense of peace, which is a tell. You know how they talk in gambling of a tell when you're playing poker and you have this tell where people can understand. That's a good tell that you've had some divine guidance reaching you, is by the feeling you get. Do you have a greater feeling of peace after getting this idea? After this image coming to you? After this dream you have? Did it bring a greater feeling of peace to you? You've been in touch with guidance then, and that's something to really draw close to your heart and reflect on. You're in communion with that guidance, that power and presence in you, and let it do its work in you by continuing to reflect on it. Those are personal prayers of asking and answers to prayer. Prayers in times of grief or sorrow, prayers in times of confusion, what do you actually want? Prayers in terms of I need a sign that I'm not alone here, that there's guidance and support for me like Mario got. Those are personal prayers, in the moment prayers for individuals. We practice it in community too, though. Prayer is asking together. We share joys and concerns on Sundays here. We ask together. There's a power in that. There's a special power, I think, in sharing deep desires of our hearts and our minds, of our lives, in community. Jesus said, when two or more are gathered, there am I in their midst. Meaning there's a Christ spirit, a Christ power at work when we come together in a spirit of truthfulness and authenticity and true sharing with one another. Lent is a great time to reflect on that because Lent starts this week, right? This coming Wednesday, I think it's Ash Wednesday. I took a class about Lenten practice a few years ago, an evening class on how the earliest Christians practiced Lent. Before it was called, before they were called Christians, when they were just followers of the way, and they were carrying on these teachings that had started with Jesus of Nazareth and were now being carried along and by people in their homes, in study groups and prayer groups in homes. It was very much about asking together. They would get together. It was under Roman oppression, so it was often secret where they were going to gather in somebody's home, and they would break bread together, and they would pray with and for one another. They did laying on of hands in those early days. If there was a need for healing. They supported one another in prayer. They sang songs. They prayed. That was powerful, asking together, getting in touch with their deep needs for protection, for guidance, for strength, for courage, the deep desires of their hearts, the things they must have desperately needed in a difficult time under oppression and persecution. Miracles abounded in those early gatherings, I would guess, because they grew and grew under such severe oppression. Prayers together, asking together, they're very powerful and they're very healing. Padre Gautama at his reconciliation center called Curragila in Ireland, he talks about the groups they have there, the counseling groups, the therapy groups, the support groups, the many, many conversations they have there in this special place he calls it a soft place for hard conversations. It's very supportive community. And they have retreats and weekends and programs going all the time. But he was remembering being a part of a group one day, and they were talking about prayer and how they practiced prayer and what it meant to them. And he said, I remember very vividly, there was a man in the group that day that we were talking about this. He said, my prayer is, I'd like to laugh again. That's a deep prayer. That's a deep prayer. And it was received in that spirit of depth, of compassion, of respect, of kindness, the vulnerability of that expression. Padre Gautama said it was very, very clear. There was a whole lifetime in those 5 words, a whole lifetime in that. I'd like to laugh again. What was behind that? And everyone knew that and understood that and respected that. There was a kind of dignity in sharing a deep desire that way and having it respected and honored and lifted up with you. That's powerful prayers of asking. Powerful prayers of asking. That's way beyond the asking for things, for asking for specifics. It's just asking for the activity of God in our midst, the power and presence to flow through, doing its mighty work. And it's something we do all the time. We're already doing it in this very room, in this very time in our lives. We're already asking, are we not? We all have deep desires of our hearts. We all have needs, things we may not even speak aloud, and we don't have to. The promise of all our great teachers is just hold them in your heart, know that you are in communion with God, and it's God's desire to respond to the deepest needs of our hearts and minds and bodies. It's a given. All we need to do is become kind of clear on that. I have a deep desire for freedom, for joy, for life of God to flow through me in fullness, for the peace of God to steady and strengthen me. I'm open, I am expectant, I'm ready to receive. So that's my affirmation for the day, and I think it's something we can all affirm. I ask, and the universe responds. Would you join me in that? I ask, and the universe responds. Let's take that into prayer for a moment. Affirm that high truth. With every deep desire in our minds and hearts, we are asking. We are opening ourselves up to divine influence. We are ready to receive. We are expectant of blessings. And so we ask freely and fully. We let ourselves become very clear on what we most deeply need and desire. We know it is known in the mind of God, and we are being guided in the direction of our highest good. And truly we are grateful, and so it is. Amen.